There has been a number of developments in the area of cocaine in Ireland over the last few days. Firstly, we had the unfortunate event of the loss of a famous singer of One Direction, who was a drug addict, as it turned out, and he only passed away there at the age of 31. Tonight, as I speak, the Justice Minister, Helen McEntee, is in Dubai, and she is currently signing off on bilateral agreements with Dubai government in the form of extradition treaties. And this is specifically for the likes of Chris Kinahan Sr., who has been residing in Dubai. Tomorrow, it sounds like he's going to be moving to Russia to avoid extradition. Cocaine is a narcotic, and it is derived from the coca plant. The coca plant is grown high up in the Andes in Colombia and Venezuela, and it is grown by peasant farmers who make a very meager amount of money out of it, out of growing that crop and out of harvesting that crop. And the only people they can sell that crop to are to militias or militant groups that do not have principles and values compatible with our way of living at all. That coca plant is then transported to processing facilities, usually underground and in hiding, and there it is mixed with wholemeal flour and fresh eggs and milk. It's then packaged into plastic. It's wrapped in plastic, and a lot of that drug, many tons of that drug, is transported north up to North America via the land route, or alternatively, many more tons of it ends up being shipped towards Europe. 3 points of destination for drugs coming into Europe are the port of Rotterdam, where the cocaine is smuggled inside containers, containers that have fresh fruit, timber, and machinery. The other two destinations are off the coast of Spain and off the coast of Ireland, most notably off the coast of Kerry. Now, these shipments are organised by the major drug groups in Ireland, and what they do is they negotiate the price, they negotiate or they get the transport, they figure out where they arrange the delivery drop-off points, and from there they collect it, and then they bring it to shore. From there, it's the, the cocaine is chopped up and distributed to the smaller groups around the country, and that drug is then distributed in every major city, town, and village in the country. An estimated 1 in 40 of us is addicted to this particular drug, and that means revenues in the millions every day goes towards funding these organizations. So what's so bad about it? When you consider that sugar is a regulated substance, if you take too much sugar later on in life, in your 70s or 80s, you're going to suffer from rotten teeth and diabetes. In terms of nicotine and smoking, again, it takes years off your life, but in the form of lung cancer. Nicotine and vaping as well, we're yet to see how it's going to affect us. But again, it's going to be something that affects us in our 60s, 70s, and 80s. Alcohol as well, it limits our capacities later on in life in the forms of liver and various cancers. But again, you're talking about in your late 70s, 80s, and 90s. Cocaine takes years off your life. What it does is it directly affects the chemicals inside in your brain. These chemicals are known as hormones. The hormone mainly concerned with cocaine is dopamine. Dopamine is a pleasure hormone, and as a consequence of that imbalance, if you're lucky to survive past 30 to 40, you will have severe cognitive mental deficiencies, and you won't be able to maintain a strong sense of attention to detail or anything like that. Furthermore, cocaine laced with fentanyl, which is the new thing now. Uh, Fentanyl, I mentioned it before in podcasts, it's a killer. Literally, it's the end of the line once you start taking it, because it's 100 times more addictive than cocaine, and it is debilitating. And it is currently an epidemic in America, and it's currently it's in Europe. It's also in Sligo, and if it's not just in Sligo, it's in Ballina and Belmullet, and God knows where else. So it's vitally important that we understand how is it getting into the country and what we can do to counteract it. I'm getting my information from a book. It's called Cocaine Cowboys. It's by Nicola Tallant, and it's published in 2023, and it's very, very up to date in terms of the history of cocaine in Ireland, who has been running the cocaine into Ireland, and what's it like for them now. I won't get into the history of it, in that, like, there's a lot of names here, high profile names. They have, what can I say about them? They're talented people, they're intelligent people, and when they first decided to commit themselves to bringing this product into Ireland, into creating distribution of this product around Ireland, that makes them personally liable for every misery, suffering, death attributable to this particular drug. And in terms of community, like, those people, had they been legitimate business people, they would have been very successful, and they would have been able to have a better way of living, a more conscience free way of living. Instead, through their talents and their efforts, they have managed to bring some of the worst people into our society, full stop. And the reasons why they brought those people into their community in the first place was simply to protect themselves and to protect their fortunes. And the book explicitly lays out exactly how they're losing their fortune and how they've lost the respect of their communities, their families, and everybody else. Again, like, these people, they, for their own protection, they've had to rely on psychotic murderers, convicted people, murderers, torturers, extortionists, um, so many nasty people, basically. And the only way they are able to maintain that organizational structure is by taking advantage of the weak and the vulnerable. And when I talk about the weak and the vulnerable, I have images of the likes of Phibsborough, Ballymun, and those communities there that have been hit by it. But not just them. There's stories here in the book about an elderly lady who inherited a fortune, and she basically lost it through them taking advantage of her and her estate. There's also a story there about Katie French. She was only a young lady. She was a socialite. If she was alive today, she would be a TikTok influencer. However, on account of her drug addiction, um, she had a bad reaction to the drug, and she lost her life over it. Um, these stories depict just how, like, even if you're not addicted to the cocaine, you can still fall into the grips of these organizations, and they just take advantage of anybody and everybody who come within their distance. Um, and what was the whole purpose for them in the first place? It was money. They wanted a fortune, and through the 80s they were able to make a fortune. Um, Prior to the murder of Veronica Guerin, it's untold, it's unknown how much money they had amassed at that time. But after Veronica Guerin, they had the establishment of the Criminal Assets Bureau, which was which was a department in the Gardaí where they could investigate into the financial dealings of these individuals, and in so doing, they were able to seize their properties and their assets. And the CAB was doing a fantastic job, but even more, what hurt these people's fortunes even more was the bust back in 2008 when the property market collapsed in Ireland, because apparently what was happening was the money, the proceeds from the selling of the cocaine, they were laundering their money into property, mainly in the likes of golf courses, clubs, um, airline or airstrips, and various other properties. And of course, when these properties, like, they would be purchasing property in Dublin at 300 million for a piece of property, and then a few years later, when NAMA comes along and takes the asset and values it at 80,000, somebody was losing a lot of money there. And for a legitimate property developer, or or a banker, or any of those people, business people at the time, if they made losses in their business, they could always declare it to revenue. And yeah, they get a rap on the knuckles. They might even go to prison for a few months for diddling the revenue. But when it comes to drug money, it's a totally different story, on the grounds that you can't declare that money to revenue. You can't declare those losses to revenue, because obviously revenue would ask the question, where did the money come from? And of course, then CAB would get involved, and it'll bring to surface all that money and laundering that was there. So the there's silver lining to every cloud, and it really exposed the financial operation of the drug cartels that were operating in this country. Consequently to all that, um, those major um, drug figures, those mob bosses, they ended up having to leave Ireland. They ended up having to lose an awful lot of their property in Ireland. And so they went to Europe. Uh, Again, once they were routed in Europe, these people went on to the Middle East. And tonight, the Minister for Justice, Helen McEntee, is in Dubai, and she is signing bilateral agreements with the Dubai government um, involving the extradition of one of these major crime bosses. And if he isn't in Dubai in the next, if he doesn't leave Dubai in the next 24 hours, he's going to come home to an awful lot of music he has to face to. But as I understand it, he's looking to move to Russia now. So what does that mean? Like, whatever fortune these people have made, um, the government will get it all back. And sure enough, if they can't, whatever fortune that they've made from the drugs, they can't move it on to their next of kin, because there's a paper trail, there's a trail there. It'll never go away. So whether the crimes of the father will become the faults of the children as well. So there's no real point to it. Um, another point that I read from the book, there was these people, legitimate, intelligent people, that could have made their own way, um, but they got involved with the drug cartels in the first place, particularly this software developer who developed EncroChat, which is all about these phones that are encrypted, and if the phone was ever confiscated, somebody can remotely wipe the memory on the phone. EncroChat, and the people, the fella that actually developed that system, that software and the hardware, um, he was making money for a while, but the police forces managed to hack into that into his systems, and so he became exposed. And because he was connected to the drug cartels, you know, it's a blemish on his, it's a mark on his career for the rest of his life. There's no way around it. Like, if you're making any sort of profit from the sale of cocaine, then you're an accessory to the crime. So you can't get away from it. Once you get into drugs, into cocaine, then there's just no way out for it. And on saying that, when the EncroChat, firstly, when the police forces, when the FBI and Europol and the Gardaí and all the different police forces got access to EncroChat, they had complete access to all the people that were part of the drugs operations across the world, and a major amount of firstly drug consignments were snapped up. High profile people were being arrested because of it, and the without communications within that organization, everybody is exposed, and they can't function in their cocaine operation. Subsequent to EncroChat, the drug dealers started using a different encrypted system, which, as it turns out, was actually developed by the FBI. So once again, the crime gangs suffered a major blow. What more was what more can I say about it? The future of cocaine and the distribution of cocaine in Ireland is now in the hands of much younger gangsters who, regardless of what experience and teachings that they're getting from the previous generations of gangsters, these new people now have to figure out how to distribute, organize and distribute this particular drug, and it's so much harder now because they've no communications to help them, and people are a lot more educated. But that's another thing that I read from the book. The new cocaine addicts out there, they're not middle-aged people like myself. No, they're going for younger people, and it doesn't matter what education you put into them. It's when you're in your teenage years and peer pressure, it's very they're very vulnerable to this kind of to getting involved with this particular thing. So going forward as a military enthusiast, it's important that we focus on keeping our young people away from drugs altogether. That's all I have to say. Take care.